And welcome back to Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, where we take a mid-week break from all the gaming stuff to talk about all the other Linux fun things going on in the world. And we're still going to talk a little bit about gaming because it's in our DNA. I'm Ben Stone here on the East Coast, joined every week in the future.
Yes, the future, because it's currently like 8 p.m.-ish right here in Portugal. I am Pedro Mateus, and joining us all the way from back in the U.S. on the other side of the country.
Yes.
I'm from the past myself, and I'm Mathieu Commando.
Okay, and together we're going to get together and just do this, but let's just do it.
Yes. All right, so Google will bring Android officially to the Raspberry Pi 3. I guess all those fan projects weren't exactly panning out and there wasn't a whole lot of adoption. And Google looked at the Raspberry Pi 3 and said, you've got the specs. You've got everything we need. So they've announced the official port, as it were. And it was sort of to be expected because the Raspberry Pi is very much an ARM board, so chances are it would actually be able to run Android just fine, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, it should be able to run Android, but my first thoughts with this was, somebody who's owned several 1 gigabyte Android tablets, no.
Right here, this phone, 1 gigabyte around.
Well, there's going to be different use cases. What you're trying to do to get away with use it for a phone versus a tablet. This being this could make an interesting Plex box. But Strider, you're going to play some games on it, right?
I was kind of surprised that this wasn't a thing already. Not really from Google, but like if someone from the community had ported Android on the device. And indeed, there were some efforts to port Android on the Raspberry Pi 2. Mm-hmm. But it seemed all very hackish, and some of the distributions didn't have hardware acceleration for the GPU and everything. The kind of stuff where you download your OS from MediaFire, and everyone loves that.
Nah, man, you just go to the, that Android development forum, XDA developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that as well. Like, nothing more trustworthy than downloading my OS from one of these places. Well, that's nice that Google at least provides some official support for it.
Yep.
But yeah, that would make a neat console for all these Android games that are not playable with a touchscreen. That's most of them, really.
Yeah, but I think you got a great business idea, and we're going to call it the Ouya.
Yes.
Didn't that already happen and then flunk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep on pieing.
Yeah. Again with the Raspberry Pi, but this time smaller one. Someone is building like an intelligence.
I just want to take a moment for, if you're listening at home and just on the audio, I want to explain, if you're wondering what this boat looks like, it looks like Hand Banana from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, all right?
Yeah, or something from Star Wars as well. So it's RC boats, well, sort of a boat, something that goes on water at least. And it has a Raspberry Pi Zero in it, and it's sort of like intelligent. It can drive itself and avoid obstacles and everything. So that's kind of cool project, except that you can't build it because you won't ever find a Raspberry Pi Zero ever.
Yeah, I thought you were joking about that, and I kind of went on a search for a Raspberry Pi Zero, and
you can find it on eBay. Yep. If you were okay with paying like 5 times the price, which is $5. If you're willing to pay $30, say, for a Raspberry Pi Zero, you can get one on eBay. Yes.
I don't know, Pedro. I was looking at this, and Strider said, well, you could put some autopilot stuff in this with a Pi Zero. It kind of looks like basically you're just building an RC-controlled boat that you might just use an Arduino for.
Yeah, you could use an Arduino, or considering how hard it is to find a Raspberry Pi Zero, you could probably make it slightly thicker and go with one of those old A model Raspberry Pis, the very first ones.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it consumes more power as well, I guess.
Oh, I know. I'm just going to
So
block the
does he-
styrofoam and use my old Pentium 90 Dell laptop. I can drag it behind it.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't float so well.
Okay. This is the last embedded type thingies we're going to be talking about, how we promised for this show anyway. Don't play the game, change the game. Thousands of free games with built-in marketing tools, and it fits in your pocket. What are we talking about? The Pocket Chip and Pico 8, now 49 wet stinky caches for a limited time. Chip, that sounds familiar. Well, it should, because it is that seriously, all right, listen, I'm not politics, but you might not want to put Fox News on there.
That's not a good idea.
All right, in all fairness, USA Today. All right, I'm playing both sides on this. No, this uses the $9 chip computer, which has a R8 1 gigahertz ARM processor, Mali 400 GPU. It's going to come with 512 of RAM, 4 gigabytes of storage, Bluetooth. One of the interesting things they chose about the Pico 8, I mean, this is a case to put everything in with a battery, comes with a screen, $49. It sounds awesome, but the resolution on this is 128 by 128 with 16 colors. So this is not going to be hipster pixel graphics. This is going to be pixel graphics, son. That's the only way you're going to be able to pull this off. But something that you need to absolutely keep in mind is this is not going to be shipping until, well, later this month, because, you know, it's technically June right now as we're doing this. So kind of wait and see, because there was a lot of hubbub when they announced this, and a lot of people that I kind of trust that said there's no way they can make this for $9. But if they found a way, I think it's really neat. Strider?
Well, the whole unit with the screen and keyboard and everything is $49, but yeah, that's still quite cheap. That's way cheaper than the Pyra, for example. It's not really comparable, but at least it's something that is really affordable. That's neat. It looks a little bit ugly, so hope someone gets a nice case like.
You say it looks ugly, all right. I like it. I mean, it looks that looks like something you do not go through the TSA line with.
No, that's going to get confiscated right then and there.
It looks very hackish, yeah. And it has a cool look, but I mean, it's really it does not look like a consumer device.
Well, it isn't. They are actively trying to market it with the whole change the game thing. They're actively trying to market it to the hackers. It's like, get your own stuff running with this. And, you know, chances are someone will probably come up with the 3D printing blueprint for a case.
For a case, but what it really needs is a proper keyboard, I guess, and that will require some... that can't be 3D printed, really.
Well, make it thin enough. It's bendable.
Maybe something like the membrane keyboard of the OLPC X01. That would be good.
No, I'm just going to make an attachment for my Model M, man. It's going to be brilliant. Click, 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 click. Hey, Pedro, you know people help us make the show,
Yeah, we've developed some attachments to the very fine young cannibals that donate wet stinky caches to our Patreons. Seriously. Thank you very, very much. I can't stress this enough. It's our Patreon.
Fund it. All right. Well, you know, it's the end of the month, beginning of a new one. So
yeah. That always happens.
Right. And, well, we're back down to 131. We were at 148 as of yesterday before. I was like, oh, shit. And that kind of happened. But, you know, 5 cents, you're going to get access to some cool stuff. I mean, especially our Google Foods, a couple of gaming specials we do with the portals, with the trines, and basically anything else we come up with. It is definitely fun. $2.50 a show. You can kick that and get access to our show notes. But wait, I was like, but then you're not. Are you going to continue doing Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays? Yes, but there's going to be a little bit of change. Before I say that, I want a huge shout out and just scream in the general direction of Craig H. Kicked in today or last night. Good on you, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you. Because we've kind of been doing like a yo-yo thing with the show for the past 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it'd go down, then it'd come back up, then it'd go down, come back up. So last month, at the end of the month, we didn't actually close at 135. Like I said, we're not going to kill the show. Here's what we're going to do. You know, we're not even going to put it back in beta. Nope. here's what we're going to do. We're going to make the video version, the full produced video version, only available to the Patreons.
All right.
All right.
And people can still get access to the MP3 download?
Exactly. I mean, if you want to subscribe, listen
All
to the
right.
audio, that's going to be fine. And I was thinking about this, what we will do with like some video segments, because, this is a very big, segment show, is basically blatantly steal what they do with the completely unnecessary podcast. And like, if we have like 2 or 3 really good segments and just cut those out and put those up on the tubes for people to watch. So,
all right. Seems fair.
Yeah, that way everybody wins and we can continue doing it. But
no, not Bacon. Oh,
everyone loves
he just left.
Yeah,
He just left GitHub.
a familiar face to open source conference goers. John O'Bacon has left his post as director of community at GitHub after only 6 months. Pedro, I got to be just perfectly honest. I didn't know he was at GitHub. I thought he was still at some other place.
Yeah, neither did I. I did hear he went to X Prize after leaving Ubuntu, but I had no idea he'd actually been working for GitHub since November, apparently.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not like a big thing. Basically, GitHub, they reorganized, streamlined some issues. They basically eliminated the community manager position. And he went around to some other departments inside GitHub because they were like, hey, see if you want to work with these other teams. And he's like, it's not really my thing, but everything was, left on good terms. So what were you saying, Strider?
Yeah, I mean, if we recap everything this guy's done, he has worked at KDE, Canonical, XPrize, GitHub. He wrote several books. He hosted 3 Linux-oriented podcasts, one of which is still running. He has an audio editor named after him. He has a metal band that is featured each week on Linux Gamecast Weekly. Yeah, it's pretty impressive already if you're honest. And it would be good if, I have high hopes that we will get something good going in the future. But if he could come back to Canonical and work on Ubuntu again, that would be so great.
Yeah.
Pedro, do you think he'll be able to shove Mir down everyone's throat?
He didn't shove it down the throat so much as he managed to ameliorate the situation when Mir was first announced. And the same thing with Unity, because he basically single-handedly prevented the catastrophic backlash when Unity was made the default back in 2011. And everyone was like, what are you doing? This doesn't work. This is broken. No. And he managed to sort of calm the waters and get everything back into, there are still a lot of, dissident voices, but I have nothing but mad respect for John O'Bacon. I would not have anywhere near the necessary patience or level-headedness to handle the Unity situation on both ends, with Canonical and with the community, like he did. Awesome.
Sounds like a thing. Well, let's go green, not like the lantern. Wait, it is called Lantern. Dang it.
Yep.
Open Internet for everyone. Lantern is a free desktop application that delivers fast, reliable, and secure access to the open Internet for users in censored regions. It uses a variety of techniques to stay unblocked, including P2P, domain fronting. Lantern relies on users in uncensored regions, acting as access points. So
it's a VPN.
Well, I think this is more like a homebrewed version of Tor, maybe, but this also works with the Androids and everything else. Currently not available in Best Korea. Strider, did you get a chance to take a look at this?
I have, but now I'm afraid that I'm a suspect amongst many governments. And I'm under surveillance. Like we've covered like a bunch of tools like this in the past weeks. So now, we're really considered terrorists, I think. This will get you under surveillance, maybe, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it if you need to. Just be smart about it. Maybe don't use it from home. Use it from some public space or something. Yeah, I mean, when you live in a country that has restricted access to the internet and where you don't have free speech, then you have to be kind of careful what you do.
Yeah, and if you keep it in, say, an SD card, and you take that SD card with you, and you're using your laptop or your netbook, or, since this actually works for Android, your phone, you just plop that SD card in and say, oh, look, there's a public Wi-Fi. Internet. All right. Let's get on with it. And, well, Solus Project actually delivered when they first introduced Steam to Solus, because Solus was originally a purely 64-bit implementation. And everyone was like, but Steam is 32-bit. I want to play my games. And they were like, okay, we'll get Steam running. And they did. And the first thing they did was, we can't handle the runtime, because there's a bunch of 32-bit libraries there that could not be preloaded, period. So they basically had to create their own runtime, or set up a system where it would check your distro to see if it already had the necessary libraries, and if it didn't, it would use those from the runtime. But if it did, it would just disable the runtime, and you could run your operating system unimpeded. So I'm actually glad to see that they've decided to share what they did with the Linux Steam integration, as they call it. There will be a link in the show notes for their Git repository. And this, I think the biggest thing right now that this will do outside of Solus is help everyone with an open source AMD or someone using the open source drivers for either AMD or Intel, since that way you don't have to actually go into the runtime and nuke a couple of specific libraries yourself. You can just let the script take care of that for you, and you'll actually be using newer versions of said libraries so long as the games work.
Yeah, really my first question with this is, since we all know Strider is kind of like Akira with sucking things in. And since he runs Lutris, I'm curious, how are you going to suck this into Lutris? How about...
we do ship a runtime as well with Lutris, which is the Steam runtime with a couple more libraries on top of it. But yeah, some users have those problems. Mostly, the users with open source AMD or Intel drivers. And that might be useful for Lutris to modify the runtime in some ways we don't do yet. So yeah, I'm looking forward to integrate this into our projects. But I mean, that's not a priority because personally, things work great with Ubuntu, NVIDIA, and
yes, but you're in a privileged position, aren't you?
It works on my side, so it's hard to work on something that I can't really test. So yeah, I mean, that will come eventually, but not a priority right now.
Well, something we've been looking for. This has been a bit of a holy grail. And we look forward to your discussion back, naming all the other stuff that we've already tried. Yep. But that would be a Skype replacement, and Ring would like to take a stab at it. We got a beta version. It is a secure and distributed voice, video, chat, communication, and servers. All right, it wants to be your Skype replacement. It works on all the things and works in air quotes, completely open source, GPL v3. I tried it. The 1404 PPA is busted. But the Debian package with the Ubuntu package is installed fine. It loaded up. I've tried playing around with it. We're probably going to give it a full shakedown Friday, at least for the audio, to see if we can get that up and running to get off the scapes. Pedro?
Yeah, we actually tried calling one another, and for some reason, at least on my end, voice wasn't getting through. I could hear you just fine, but you couldn't hear me. So I don't know what the hell is up with that, because according to the Pulse Audio, the PAVU control, everything was where it was supposed to, and it was actually registering whenever I talked, and you couldn't hear me.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't directly test it in production today, like for this show. That would have been fun, right? No, it's
Right.
more seriously. That seems to be a quite nice alternative to Talks, which kind of does the same thing, like encrypt all the things, peer-to-peer, decentralized chat clients. And the project seems to be way ahead. Well, not ahead, but on parity with Talks in its current state. And I think one of the reasons it is it has gained this momentum is that the project focuses on one client, one multi-platform client, whereas Talks, they have all these different clients on all these different platforms, which are not at feature parity. So
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that being one of the issues with several of the audio. Exactly the point. Not just Talks, several things. When you have just, all right, here's our protocol, then you have 20 different clients, and for the average person...
Yeah, none of them work the same way. I mean, some of them have video, some of them have audio, some of them you just get text. And here you have one client, you have everything. That's so. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be sending him a list of like, these are suggested features, which will basically just read a list of it. These are things Vin needs for the show.
Yeah, but still comparing to Talks, I wonder how it performs on Android battery-wise, because the Talks clients on Android will drain your battery really, really fast.
Okay.
And I talked to the Talks team a couple of months ago, and they said it couldn't be avoided because that's the way the protocol works, and because it's decentralized, it has to continuously ping the other clients in order to have the chat going. So that's why it drains your battery. So I wonder if Ring does the same thing. That would be a nice test.
It will be fun to find, but somebody discovered a brand new psychopath.
Yes. So
Sanity.
not Mir, not Wayland. This is Arkin. So what is Arkin? This is display server window manager built on a game engine written totally from scratch. And yeah, it's directly competing with Wayland, Mir, and all the things. I've looked at the demo. It looks really, really neat. I mean, it can run some videos. It can run some webcam feeds, some games with libretro, because libretro will run on basically anything.
Yep.
Hey, man, I already like him. He's got the Amiga bouncy ball.
Yeah, it's the team for its desktop environment is the Workbench 1.3 of the Amiga. So that's awesome as well. And that looks really impressive. It looks really performant as well. So I'm looking forward to see some progress here. And maybe Mir and Wayland needs a little bit of a
competition.
Push.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some competition, because they failed to deliver. Like for the past couple of years, we still don't have Mir or Wayland.
Oh, dude, don't you worry.
It's shipping and Fedora guaranteed next release.
Yeah.
It's going to be the default in Fedora 25. Trust me. No, it's well, already everyone else outside the Linux community makes the joke that Linux is fragmented. So why stop at just making another tiling window manager? Go whole hog and create your own display server as well. But considering what last time we had Ryan C. Gordon, Iculus, on the show, he mentioned that there was a certain recurring window manager that kept showing up on bug reports, which was awesome. Not the bug reports themselves. It was about the window manager. Awesome. And he had sort of grown to hate it, as it were. So I'm curious to see how this one, with its own display server and everything, would handle games, actual Linux games.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we all need to think about because we're going to be running into that with Wayland and to a much lesser extent Mir. So, yeah, I mean, fantastic work, man. Well, team that's doing this, we're just saying that, like what Strider said. I was like, oh, why not? I just created this for whatever. That the same thing happened with Wayland. I mean, hey, let's keep this going. Yeah. More the better. So, what?
System D. Okay, so System D again. Some people have some complaints about System D as usual because that's what people do, complain about System D, and for good reasons sometimes. And this is one of them. A new update for System D has changed the behavior of processes once the user logs out, and it will kill every process the user has started in this session. So you could say that's a good thing, right? You don't want things like lying around.
Unless you're running a server and say you SSH into the server and you try to start a process and you want it to keep running, but the moment you log out, it's dead.
Dead, right. So one of the most popular things like that do that are tmux, screen, SSH agents as well. And yeah, now with this System D updates, if you fire up a tmux instance, you log out, there, no more tmux for you. It's killed. So great, just great. You've defeated the whole point of tmux.
I don't know, man. This is definitely kind of like a bad thing because System D's not really well loved by, I'm not going to say a vast majority, but a very, very vocal minority who seem to have valid points a lot of time.
Dev1 would like a word with you.
No, but it's going away. It's become the default for all major distributions. So now they just have to keep it like in a way that works. And also it's the job of distributions to modify it if they need to in a way that it will keep stuff working for the users. I mean, it's only a default settings which you can change. And if you want, you can revert to the previous behavior where it wouldn't kill the processes. So yeah, if the distribution wants to change that, they can. And that would be an option.
But I mean, for me, man, I'm definitely trying to keep off the System D as long as possible. I'm not going to be able to put it off.
You're not going to escape this. You will go to System D at some points, and it works. I mean, it works. I have no problem with System D. It's just that, System D developer own way of thinking and how things should be, and if you don't go with them, then you're in trouble. And that's what they ask for tmux developers. They said, okay, we're doing this way now. And tmux developers, please implement this very System-D specific code in your project. Otherwise, it won't work. And tmux dev said, nope, we're not going to use dbus in our project. We're not going to introduce like this dependency or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's some kind of problem here.
System D is hardcore. Man, it's dropping bodies left and right. I still remember Foduntu. In any case, System D, I like the concept. And the fact of the matter is, it works. Even Ubuntu ditched Upstart in favor of System D. So that right there should tell you everything you need to know. But I also see the problem, because the Unix philosophy is do one thing and do it well. And System D doesn't do one thing, it does everything. It's like Emacs. You could probably run your own operating system inside System D if you really tried to. And that's not a good idea because there's something else in the wild that already does that. It's called svchost.exe from Windows. Anyone who's used Windows over the past, 10 years or even tried to debug Windows for a friend or for the company or whatever, you know that's a problem, because whenever you see an svc host.exe process using 100% of one core out of the CPU, you go like, okay, so what exactly is causing that? And you don't know. And with systemd, everything is basically shoved into PID 1, and yeah, good luck killing that process.
Well, one thing I do know is Krita just went 3.0.
Oh, yes, it did. They had a Kickstarter a while back, and they were successful. They made it through the campaign successfully, and they've implemented a bunch of new features. They're calling this specific release, what was it? The animation release. So yeah, it's basically been a year.
Are they seriously offering app images for... Oh, Jesus.
Yes, they are.
Oh.
Look, it was either that or a Docker executable. Yeah, so it is, Krita is one of those image editors. It's actually more dedicated to drawing, sort of. Take your Adobe illustrators, as it were, or your sketchbooks, something along those lines. But what I'm hoping is that Krita is similar enough to Photoshop or Illustrator, while doing its own thing, and hopefully better than Adobe's offerings. They're already, free.
Yeah, it's not really the same type of program. I mean, Photoshop is really a photo editing program.
Yeah,
and
this is more like Adobe Illustrator.
Illustrator is like vector art, so it's more similar to Inkscape. This is like more a redrawing program, and for painting, actual painting, usually it's if you don't have a tablet, don't expect to use Krita. This is really for drawing stuff, and you can do some pretty neat stuff. You can do this kind of stuff on Photoshop as well, but it will never replace Photoshop fully. You will still need Krita on one side and GIMP on the other side, because there are some features that are not found on both.
You mentioned tablets. You see, one of the things I'd like to see out of Krita is an Android version, because I have a Shield tablet, which has a stylus. I would like to be able to use it. Well, not me, Nori, specifically.
Yeah, I'm glad that this Kickstarter was successful, and because it shows that quality open source software can generate revenue, and if you do good stuff, and Krita is good stuff. It's like the best painting program on like every platform, I guess, not only on Linux. It's over all the option. It's one of the best painting programs.
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's really good to see, something that did a Kickstarter and release something in a reasonable amount of time, not like 3 years later that is completely busted, that has half the features of the 4-year-old version of something currently, and we're not naming names, but...
I don't know. Does it end with a T?
Maybe.
And they have another Kickstarter going on, and it's pretty successful as well. It will introduce vector art, text feature program, so that's cool as well. And I'm really glad to see the artwork of David Rivoire, which is a French artist, on all the websites. Like I think he is some kind of community manager for Krita or something.
All right, right.
He is an amazing artist. He does some really cool stuff. He's really talented. And he uses only open source software. So,
well, there's only one thing I hate more than app images.
This is Flatpak, so you have known this as XDG app from GNOME, and they renamed it from XDG app to Flatpak. So it's basically the GNOME's version of Snappy, Ubuntu Snappy. It looks cool. It, for those who don't know, it lets you package programs that will run on any distribution that won't need to be installed with the package manager, like they did for Krita, for example, except it was with Snappy. But yeah, it's a sandbox application that you can distribute, and you don't have to care about the dependencies, about which distribution to target and everything. So that's pretty cool.
Link all the things. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having gigabytes and gigabytes of the same libraries.
Yep.
Stacking up. It's going to be awesome. It's totally going the wrong direction. Please stop.
I mean, I kind of
I like the direction. Linux needed that for many years.
Yeah.
I mean, it has software distribution problems.
That's a controversial opinion there, Strider.
And that's basically what I'm doing with Lutris, is shipping software.
For video games, which are inherently... Well, the video games are inherently sandbox themselves.
No, and not necessarily the sandbox thing. That's not the main selling point for me. The main selling point for me is the distribution aspect. I have to take care about dependencies. And if your distribution ships with one version of a library and your software requires an older or newer version, it will still run.
Well, I'm kind of like empty on this. We've been around with the Linuxes for, I'm not even touching. It's like 18 years now. We remember, when all the things were statically linked and we're like, this is kind of rubbish. Then, we got the dynamic linking. Like, this is better. And it's coming back. And we're like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Steam, the big kicker for the whole statically linked thing was Steam and the runtime. Because the runtime is a bunch of statically linked libraries and one dynamic link, which is libgl.so. That's it. And this... I mean, it's great. I can see why GNOME themselves would do it. They have basically created their own, not Ubuntu Software Center, but their own software installation front end, as it were. And now there's a whole new package manager that you have to install onto your system to get Flatpak.
It's going to be brilliant, but I'll tell you what. We don't have to worry about any of this because Google just killed the GPL. Linux is dead.
Yeah, so Google won the case against Oracle.
Yeah.
And what did one of Oracle's lawyers had to say about this? She said that it was very unfortunate because this meant that it would mean that the GPL would die because of this. Because
I'm getting the feeling that this person has no idea what the GPL is
and how it's applied and to what it's applied. So basically, what she's telling is, since some GPL programs have dual licensing, which on one side is GPL and on the other side is commercial distribution of software. Well, one could take like GPL licensed software and do whatever they want with it without any repercussions. Well, that's simply not true because dual licensing is like dual licensing for a reason. And this does not apply whatsoever to the Google Oracle thing. I mean,
no, this doesn't. I mean, this comes across as a person who, I think they get it, but they're like, we lost. We need to spread some fear, uncertainty, and or doubt. And it kind of went out, and everyone looked at it and went,
there's a big difference. No, there's a huge difference about actual code and definitions of APIs, which was what Google and Oracle were fighting
over. Yeah. And that's what Oracle tried to do. They tried to get APIs to be something that could be licensed, something that could be sold, something
Well, they
that
tried to get
could
it
be...
copyrighted, which they succeeded,
Yes.
but then the court and it went to the higher court, and the court kicked it back. It is like, you need to take care of this other thing, mainly because it had a federal element involved into it. But this basically just boiled out. I mean, this is going to be appealed. This is going to be like the Microsoft trial. We'll know how this ends in 2073, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Google thankfully won this trial, and I kind of do hope it sticks, but like Van already mentioned, chances are it probably won't. And this is just a lawyer who lost a case lashing out. All I hope is that Google remembers the fair use arguments they used to actually win this trial.
We'll get to that. But Strider, think about this. Just in case Linux survives and the GPL survives, maybe we'd want to buy a new Intel processor.
Let's do it.
But
PC per.
How much?
This comes
up.
How much?
This comes from
low price, man.
this comes from PC per. They have the review for the Intel Core i7-6950X, the 10-core, 20-threaded Broadwell E 14 nanometer part, which will run you for $1,730 something if you want to buy it. This is exactly what everyone who buys an AMD GPU says. We don't want Intel to have the monopoly, and well, I guess they already do because they get to price their processors at $1,700.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was actually talking to the Josh Walrus over at PC Per earlier this week because he was like, "Woof." And I absolutely had to come back, and I thought about it, and I was like, I have lived long enough to watch Intel come completely full circle back to FU pricing, because if you remember in the old days, when the first Pentiums came out, you were looking $700, and that was $700, in like $1994, $1995, and it was kind of ridiculous. Then when the initial, the Thunderbirds, the Slot A's, came out from AMD and just kind of caught Intel like with their pantaloons down, and they went whoo. Then we actually had a price equality for a little while. Then that slowly Intel's kind of jacked this back up. But one thing, what do you think about this? I don't think this is set so high merely because they can. I think the ultimate reason is in the long term they don't want this part to compete with the new i7s that recently came out, the Skylakes, and they don't want to have to modify the price on the i5s and the i7s and drop that price. They can keep that price still artificially high and put this out there like a unicorn. What were you saying, Strider?
I mean, this is something that is quite unusual for Intel, even with their high prices, because they have been they shipped a range of extreme CPUs, and they always have been like more or less $1,000.
Yeah.
And this one, it's like crazy high compared to them. It's almost double the price. So I guess, this is not a consumer level CPU.
It's an enthusiast part. It's Broadwell E. The E stands for enthusiast.
This is the Titan X. This is the somebody's gonna buy it.
Yeah, it's for rich people who like to show off, or people who have a lot of money and have an actual need for it, but these are really
Or then again,
few.
this could be, next quarter we're going to be releasing 8-core bin versions of this.
They kind of sort of announced that too with the 6820X, I think. I think that's an 8-core or a 6-core. I don't remember. But yeah, this... Ryan was saying in the article that the overclocking bits, he managed to get it up to 4.3 gigahertz on all 10 cores stable at 1.35 volts, which is considerable for an AMD, for an Intel processor, because if you compare it to, say, an AMD, let me give you an example. The AMD Athlon X4860K that I have in the Steam box over there, the stock V-core is 1.45. So it's still considerably below your typical AMD offerings, but for an Intel processor, he said that even with a Corsair H100i, which has two 120 millimeter fans and it's a self-contained water block, even with that cooler on the processor, he was still getting up to 75 Celsius during. Yeah, it's.
You see, he should have got a Wraith cooler.
That would have been quieter, but I doubt it would have been better.
I don't know.
But
I think parts like this are always fascinating, like a Titan X, like in the day, I'm sure when the 1080X comes out, you're just like, really want it, never going to buy it, but it's something to lust after. Really,
yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's like a concept car.
Right.
And it shows what you can do with technology, and it's not really meant to be used by regular people.
Well, I mean, this is not exactly new sauce. I mean, they've done 10-core Xeons for a long, long time.
This is just the more consumer-oriented version. It's still the enthusiast level consumer, but it is very much a consumer level part. And it is, I guess we should probably say that it is the first consumer level, as enthusiastic as it may be, a processor to have 10 cores. It is. Well, everything else has been enterprise.
Thing. I think that's going to do it for our discussion, but we do need to get into a little bit of feedback. J-Man, how can people go about getting in touch with us?
J-Man is not joining us today, but you can always get in touch with us the usual way. Go on over to linuxgamecast.com/submitted-post-2
or just in the menu.
Just push the contact button in the nav bar. It's easier.
Come on, get it
Fill
right,
out the form. Yeah, no, I'm not Jordan. I choke way too much.
Put on the word.
But yeah, you can fill out the form and you pick whether you're submitting some feedback for Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays or some hate mail for Linux Gamecast Weekly, and we'll be happy to scream right back in your direction.
So throw it on the YouTubes, Patreons, anywhere we're at, we can read a comment.
Yep, Google Plus, Twitter, what have yous.
All right. Well, let's see. Coming up first, Pingos. It's a random guy I never heard of and don't have any idea who he is, Strider, but he wrote back. He says, seems people have set opinions about Pinguy OS without even trying it. The guy didn't even know what DE it was using. He thought it was XFCE. XFCE doesn't look anything like GNOME. And my first thought was, that was your issue? But, so you're saying everything else we said was just spot on, but that was the issue. But Strider, you did retort.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of missed the point. Yeah, because at some point I got confused and mixed up XFCE and with GNOME. So I mean, who cares? It wasn't my point. My point was you don't need to ship a whole distribution to make a cool desktop. And yeah, there was a long post I posted on YouTube.
Yeah, you can find the YouTube comment thread. It's basically Strider and this guy going backwards and forwards.
And I told him, yeah, if you want your project to survive, you should ship it as this whole thing that can plug on an existing distribution and not have installed a system. And what he had to say is, by that logic, Ubuntu shouldn't exist.
That was a pretty good one. You actually gave him the business after that, didn't you?
Well, yeah, because that's totally different. I mean, Ubuntu pretty much changed everything on top of Debian. I mean, they rebuilt all the packages from source. They changed the release cycle from like something like 2 years or to something like to 6 months, and they have like put a bunch of other extra stuff into it. So that doesn't apply really for Ubuntu. And to that, he didn't have anything to reply. But yeah, I mean, I think he missed the points a bit, and wonder if you'll take my advice.
Hopefully, man. It just seems like there's bigger issues going on at that project than just financing. But this one from Random ASCII, pretty regular commenter, writes into Pedro. It says, let's talk about being fair. He says, I get what Pedro's saying, but Google's hypocrisy with YouTube doesn't make their argument here less valid. It's certainly an issue on YouTube, but that's separate issues.
Well, yes, I realized that. And what I was pointing out was their hypocrisy. That was it. It's like, oh, look at that. It's Google. And they're arguing fair use to try and get out of the trial.
Boys and girls, this is where you go back and watch last week's show. I'll see if I can come up with the timestamp when Pedro was saying verbatim, they're the exact same thing.
I didn't say they were the exact same thing. No, I didn't.
Yeah, you want to put some money on that?
Yeah. I listened to last week's episode and I kind of have an idea of what I say sometimes. Not always.
Take it as a no. All right, as you...
There are some of those nights in Linux Gamecast Weekly where I have no idea what I'm saying and I don't remember what I said the next morning. But this case in particular is that, yes, YouTube or Google is being a hypocrite because of the whole fair use thing that's currently still very much going on in YouTube. And it's like I was saying earlier, I really hope that now that the trial is over and Google has won, that they remember the arguments that they use and they remember and really hold on to that for when the next round of YouTube channels gets noped on copyright claims.
Well, you see, Strider, what do you think? Because YouTube, how many times over the years has YouTube said, we're about to do X, and they've never followed through on any of it. They just say, oh yeah, don't worry, we're going to take care of this fair use thing. We're going to get you lawyers. And all this. It hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Because the guy on Reddit, the legal Reddit lawyer guy, he's always like jumping in and helping out people, not hearing jack from YouTube. But what I was going to ask you, Strider, is I don't think YouTube doesn't have to change. Where are you going to go, man? They're the power company.
Yeah, there's always Dailymotion in France.
Vimeo.
Or Vimeo. No, Vimeo is kind of a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty much a monopoly. Thing is, I don't think Android and YouTube have anything in common company-wise. They're all owned by Google, but that's about it. I mean, they probably have different legal departments. They're located in different places. They have very little in common. So even if it's both on the fair use thing, it doesn't share anything.
I get what you're saying, and I get what Pedro's saying, and I hope everyone got what we're saying, because I think it's going to do it for this week's episode. If you want to catch more of J-Man and myself,
Jordan's going to be so happy to hear that.
He's going to love it. I'm going to call you J-Man all during this week at 9:30 Eastern time. Come check it out. We do a thing called Linux Gamecast Weekly. It's a little more rock and roll than this show, so be prepared. You might not want your parents watching it, is what I'm saying.
Or if you're a parent, you may not want your kids watching it.
Either way, just pretend you guys don't, and just go in separate rooms and be like, haha, loophole. But, yeah, I think that's going to do it. We will be back here next week, usually around 3-ish Eastern time. Pretty easy to find us. You can always find me. I'm at Vinstone on the Twitternets, plus Vinstone on G+.
Hi, I'm Pedro Mateos, totally not J-Man, or probably this week I will be. But you can always find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter, or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+.
And I'm Mathieu Commando, and you can find me at Striker on Twitter, or plus Mathieu Commando on Google+.
You can also go to lucerus.net and check
out that as well.
Yeah, you gotta be better than Pedro and I. We're horrible at shilling.
Seriously, Strider, plug your stuff. Just do it.
Yeah, make sure you do that. Oh, by the way, patreon.com/Linux Gamecast. Help us out. Yes. If you like the show, buy us a beer. It'd be awesome. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
See you.